podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
It's the Easter long weekend, and unfortunately, the traditional pickled fish was seasoned with the tears of South African rugby fans. Let's get stuck in. Welcome back to Bit of an Animal, the South African Rugby Union podcast here on the Global Gainlines YouTube channel. I'm joined this evening by Bryce and Jean. Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening, guys.
Both of our Lions supporters are not here this evening. Their team didn't play this weekend, but they've also got other commitments. I hope Super is enjoying the university rugby. Gentlemen, we start this evening by first saying belated happy Passover to our Jewish listeners and followers. Happy Easter to our Christian listeners and followers, and a very belated happy Eid al-Fitr to our Muslim listeners and followers. Interesting. Obviously, an extremely auspicious weekend because it was also High Rocks Cape Town. So happy High Rocks to our very fit listeners and followers. Hopefully I'll do it in August. I'm getting a bit of High Rocks FOMO, seeing everybody sort of compete and whatnot. I've not done a High Rocks. I've only done the mini High Rockses that they do before the main event, the PFTs, physical fitness tests. So I've done a couple of those. So maybe it's time I do the full one. Although I am bit annoyed at the prices of High Rocks. But that's neither here or there. I hope everyone had an awesome long weekend. Who didn't have an awesome long weekend though is Stormer supporters, because that's the game we start off with. Bryce, you guys went to a very beautiful stadium on the Mediterranean in France. Put up a fight, lost by 1 point. Lots of talking points coming out of this game. I saw a lot of different opinions on the game. Obviously, we can interpret it from different perspectives, having not physically been there. I don't know anybody who was there. I always like to talk to somebody who was in the stadium to get that perspective, because rugby can be sort of professional sport can be very interpretive on the television. I always say it looks this goes for football as well. It looks incredibly easy when we're sitting on the couch on a Saturday afternoon. It looks like the person has a ton of time to either kick it into the goal or pass the ball to the guy over his shoulder. But I considering all the controversy coming out of this game and the Bulls game that we watched that came on after this, that we're also going to analyze, I took the opportunity to really watch the Stormers game again, because as Jean has said before, like when you watch it the first time, you watch it from more of an emotional point of view and you enjoy it. Literally at the end of this game, I looked down at my activity watch, and for some reason I was on the couch, but my heart rate was 115. So that generally doesn't happen. Like I have a resting heart rate of 50. So it reflects that it's an exciting game. But having watched it again, I feel like there was a lot of mistakes. I took the opportunity to also look at the message boards and see that like there was a broad range of criticism. People are saying double out. People are saying, why is Willem on the wing? People are saying, and criticism of Haaland has been measured to a degree, but there's also bad faith criticism of him, because I mean he made mistakes and he hasn't been in great form, even though he was in good form in the previous game. I mean, he had a split second to pass. Yes, he tried a 50-22, but so did David Kriel in the previous in the game after that, in the Bulls game that didn't come off. It's a confluence of issues. Bryce, do you think this will be the platform for you to actually take this lesson and go one step further in the URC?
Yeah, I mean, look, it was much more encouraging than the last couple of seasons overseas, where we just got hammered, like what, 40 points or something. But I think this time I got quite confidence after this match. It's like, okay, we can actually play now in these Champions Cup away games. Okay, it wasn't Toulon's strongest team, or I don't know. There wasn't. Was it Toulon's strongest team?
They were missing a handful of players, and they're not in great form either. But yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still Toulon in Toulon, a nearly full stadium. I mean, it was nice to see the Stormers actually have a crack there. I mean, that was nice. I think from performance-wise, I like our scrum looked good. Okay, I'm not sure about the breakdown. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Depends on what the ref was doing there. But I'm not going to talk about the ref, because I'm not going to be one of those guys. But yeah, overall the performance was I was quietly satisfied with the performance. However, yeah, it is the Stormers, and the Stormers love to find a way to lose a game when they winning. So I think there was a couple of moments. I think the one moment which is evident was that just when Sacha came on, and then we had that brilliant phase of attack, and then we ended up with Sacha chipped the ball in and Galant got it. I don't know what the coaches are coaching over there, but for some reason we have this hesitancy to pass the ball when it's on, like two on one, just a simple pass, and Roos is over. Instead, Haaland goes in, gets the tackle, and then what? In my opinion, that should have been a turnover to Toulon, but we were fortunate there. And then he crashes over. And then the second one, I don't know. That's was last the last. No, 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 no. There's three actually. The second one
Mhm.
is Daimani breaks on the wing. So there was a lot of
Yeah.
basketball.
Kobus Reinach
Daimani,
could have passed to
yeah,
Paul de Villiers,
yeah,
and then a try actually didn't come out of that.
yeah. So that's another one which makes me think, are all the players coached like this? I mean, because Reinach is what, like 35. He has this experience, and he's doing this. Maybe that's a coaching thing. And obviously last is the decision at the end to leave it up to the referee and pick and go when we had 13 versus 15. I I don't know what's the thinking in the camp there, because I don't know, it's almost like they can't just play simple like numbers. They have to go glory boys or something. I don't know. I don't know if you guys feel the same. It's just I think we could have won this game by I feel 10 points, 10 or more points if we just played the simple rugby. But I don't know. We love to make everything complicated.
There was also that incident with Dan du Plessis at the end of the first half when it was already
Mm.
in the 40-minute, where they decided to instead of kicking the ball out and going in for the second half, which is understandable,
Mm.
they decided to attack. Okay, so then Dan du Plessis got
Mm.
the ball sort of from a decent move, and he was on the line. And instead of like cutting into his left, he
Mm.
decided to like just try and sprint for the line between the touch line and him, and then obviously three Toulon players tackled him out. Watching it live, I was a bit critical of him. I thought like,
Mm.
couldn't you take contact move on the inside? But then watching it again, I thought, okay, if he had maybe tried to move to his left and get tackled, I don't know if he had the support, and he might still have
Mm.
gotten turned over, and then Toulon would have been second off. So things can be sort of interpreted, even if you're watching it on TV in the moment, differently. If you sort of watch it again and have the luxury of being able to pause, because I mean we are able to pause live thanks to the DSTV Online
Mm.
app, but you don't really want to do it because if you pause live, then you sort of miss the live action as well. So there was that incident, but the Reinach thing really sort of bothered me
Mm.
because watching it live, I was like, Paul de Villiers is on your right. He's on your right.
Mm.
And then Reinach cut to his left. As much as we like Cobus Reinach, on this channel in particular, all the rap and the Global Gain Lines podcast, we try and do good faith arguments. We try and measure our criticism, be it of the players. And yes, we do sometimes critique the refs as well, because the ref, in my notes, I had the ref sort of missing a Toulon sort of infringement and that type of thing. I mean, early in the game, the Stormers held the ball up from Toulon's attack, and then later, obviously, the big thing was right at the
Mm.
end. So that was like the seventh minute, if I look at my notes. So these things irk you, but
Mm.
yeah, we're gonna have to take the lessons. Jean, Dave Ribbons is going to qualify for us at the next World Cup. Are you looking forward to seeing him run out in the green and gold?
I don't know. Does he go for the drop goal?
Mm.
I think
He's
that's
from
the question.
Somerset West, so no.
Um, and yeah, I think look, um, I can feel where Bryce is coming from, in terms of in terms of you're expecting the Stormers to win, and I think he's 100% right. The Stormers should have won this game. They really should have. Um, the Stormers at this point is giving me a lot of 2021, 2022 Springboks vibe of trying too hard and not being settled yet. I'm hoping that by the knockout stages of the URC, that they've sort of settled. The Springboks also went through a phase where you just try too hard. You guys mentioned all the great examples. Reinach not passing, leading to a ball held up. And I just wanted to say that for me, even though it wasn't the first couple of minutes, the fact that Reinach got held up. Reinach is a guy who's benching 140, right? He's benching the same as props, as per active Springbok prop players. He's a strong guy. Someone's holding him up over the try line. That's a warning sign, right? That's your warning sign to say we're not going to try our luck with if there's two players. A 2v1 on the try line is going to result in us losing possession. So that should be a red flag right there. And Toulon were very clever. They were treading that line. Now we can agree, disagree on the semantics of the law and the interpretation of the law when it comes to that last play. The fact of the matter is, for anyone with half a rugby sense, there was 4 phases that the Stormers played in front of the pole. In front. Sasha didn't even need to drop into the pocket. He could have catch, dropped, kicked. The 9 could have done the drop kick, and it's the victory seal. The one criticism I will give to the officiating team is to say that giving a yellow for that tackle by Nonu on Similane is reckless. It is, in my opinion, absolutely reckless. There is no attempt to bind. It is the mitigation that he is going down. He is not. Both his legs are straight. He is staying up. There's no binding. He's staying straight. And there's clear head-on-head contact. Those 3 criteria, as per World Rugby standards, make it a red. If Mao Nonu is not cited by a commission, then World Rugby's promise of looking after player welfare is fundamentally flawed, because that should have been a red. If that was a test match, we would have seen a red. And if the TMO would have intervened. So that to me is the moment where everything should have slowed down. The ref should have said, stop. This we have to get right, because it's head on head, it's upright, the player went down afterwards. There's a lot to unpack here. He would have seen the person is staying upright. He would have seen Mao Nonu coming in, making head contact. Intentional or unintentional, that is a red card. And it's not about South African allegiance or French allegiance. Player welfare transcends boundaries. That should have been a red. And I hope we do see a citing for that, because it's reckless in my opinion. But yeah, the game was truly the Stormers for the taking. And I do think, to the critics out there of South African teams in the Champions Cup, I think this will have showed them that, look, it's getting very close. It's getting uncomfortably close for some big teams. Toulon are not a squad to laugh at. I counted very quickly about 7 or 8 internationals, 9 or 10 if you're including the bench. So there's a lot of international experience in that bench, good scrummages, and Toulon did not have the game in the bag. So I think, as far as Champions Cup and Challenge Cup goes, we're getting to the knockout phases, and yes, we still have to get past the first round of knockouts. But I think there's a lot of coaches looking at next year, looking at their squads, and saying we best be ready if we want a shot against the South African teams.
Historically, South African teams have gotten past the last 16 once or twice, especially the first season we competed in this, because we were in the URC the first season and we didn't have any EPCR tournaments, because how do you qualify if you were never there? And in the second season, we had URC and EPCR tournaments. And what was interesting is, in the first season, we only played URC. We didn't mix in the Currie Cup Premier Division in between, because there was like a couple of games there. But we've regressed somewhat more recently into just getting knocked out almost immediately in the last 16, in the first knockout phase. And I think this is why it annoys me, the structure of the EPCR tournaments, because I mean, the Sharks had more points than the Bulls, but because of their group, they went straight into they dropped down into the Challenge Cup, and we'll get to the Sharks later. The Stormers really should have had a home last 16 fixture, but because of other permutations of the format. So I agree with some other pundits saying there's no perfect format, but there can be certain tweaks done to the format itself. And yeah, but this was not a bad Toulon team, even though they were missing a few players. Like French teams are stacked. I just want to before we go to you again, Bryce, just want to shout out Andre Smith, the lock from the Stormers, unheralded player. Um, he's from Swellendam, where high school in George at Hoërskool Landbou School, Oakdale, Riversdale in George. A guy, somewhat of a journeyman out of high school, went to the Bulls system, got a couple of games with the Bulls, like in the youth system, and maybe Currie Cup, fringe player, that type of thing. Has Then went to Griquas for 2 seasons, and sort of like jump started his career. Stormers, Western Province, played 1 season in Japan, and he had a blind over game. Like at the beginning of the game, he like if I check my notes here, what minute was it? 1 minute 23 seconds in, he got a jackal, and everybody thinks like you only have to worry about Paul de Villiers turning the ball over. No, the Stormers is like everybody. And this guy's the lock, so people don't think the lock's gonna like get down in the ruck and turn the ball over. He got it off of Dave Ribbons, good player. So yeah, shout out to him. We always like to give a bit of shine to some unheralded players. And then the last point I want to make is that the Stade Mayol 17,500 capacity stadium, fantastic weather, fantastic atmosphere. Like I kind of feel like this is the type of stadium, maybe slightly smaller, but a similar design that maybe the Lions need to get, and do a few other things. I mean, the Lions get about 3,000 people in that massive stadium for them. So if the Lions have a 55,000 seater stadium, if they can get a smaller stadium in this type of design, they could fill it out with a few more entertainment and get people in and playing more rugby and winning generally gets a thing, and then create more of this type of atmosphere. Because I mean, like fantastic, like to watch on TV. I can't imagine what it's like in person. Back to you, Bryce.
I just wanted to add on to Jean's point about South African teams become more competitive. It's interesting because I looked at what there was a couple of other games in the weekend, which was Bordeaux against, was it Leicester? And then there was Toulouse against Bristol. And those was like what, 50, 60 point scores with 20, and there's no real complaint there. I don't know. So I mean,
Yeah.
South African teams are not doing too bad for Europe, for the away team. So like I mean, Glasgow whipped Toulouse earlier this season. So listen, it's once once we start beating these big teams away, I think we're gonna get a lot of confidence from this tournament. But we're almost there, like Jean said, we're almost there.
Now, the Stormers system was like with Dobson, they were saying early in the season they were going to try and make the final of both the URC and the EPCR,
Mhm.
and they've sent some mixed messages. Like more recent press conference, they were talking about Project 2029, which is like the year 2029. But earlier in the season, they were talking about a different sort of project of like maximizing the games they can play this season. So competitively, if they made the URC final and the EPCR final, they would play like 28, 29 games, that type of thing. And it looked like, but in fairness, even on this podcast, we were saying, look, the Stormers look good even when they went on that unbeaten run. But there are aspects to it that we are concerned about when it comes to knockout rugby. And some of those things did come through in this game. And so we're hoping that with the 4 URC games to come, and then a near definite home, a last 8, and hopefully a home semi-final, and possibly a home final, depending on what happens to Glasgow, the Stormers can sort of work on some of these systems. And I do maybe feel that um, with Haaland being in such poor form, a player of good quality. I mean, I watched him live win the Junior World Cup alongside Steven Kitsoff and Andre Pollard, etc. Rather just drop him and put Willemse at the back or Sasha at the back. So many really quality players can play multiple positions. And if a guy's that much out of form, why not just go for broke and go Willemse 15, Sasha 15, Willemse 12, Reinach 9, Mattia 10, that type of thing. But it's also depending on like the not having Ben Jason Dixon did affect them to a certain degree because he's highly influential as well.
I think I think the biggest criticism I can level at the Stormers coaching group is their unwillingness to drop a player.
Mm.
Look, I understand that being a coach is a massive leadership responsibility. But you saddle that up, and if you need to drop the player in a match, you need to do it, right? And it's up to you to explain why. And if the player in the match is not doing what you need him to do, but you know you've got one of the world-class 15s on the field, and you can shift him into that position, and you've got a person who's reasonably capable of covering wing. In fact, you've got two reasonable wings on in your squad. Make do, right? And I was thinking around about the 20th minute, I was like, why doesn't he pull Geland? Pull Geland, put Similane on the wing. Or if you're really scared that Similane is that slow off the pace, pull Geland, shift Willemse to wing, shift Willemse to fullback, Reinach to wing, and bring on your other nine. You've got options here. And at the end of the day, as much as you plan for the match, you have to play what's in front of you. I mean, we spoke on a Friday night about the Bulls having to be heads up to the possible weather conditions in Scotstoun. And, it's the same with the match in and of itself. And I think this is the biggest thing for me in where South African club coaches sometimes are just lacking is they go in with, this is the plan, this is what we're going to do, the replacements. And sometimes you have to look at the plan and say it's not applicable anymore, or this part of the plan is not applicable anymore. I have to shift. And I truly believe that if Geland had been subbed off, Willemse had moved to 15, the attacking threat that Toulon posed would have been somewhat nullified just because of the intensity Willemse brings on defense. And number two, the coherence of attack that you would get from Willemse being willing to pass, being willing to shift the ball, and not being one to ride it alone, would have resulted in a greater score difference in the last couple of minutes in favor of the Stormers. So I think there it's just willingness to say, you know what, the guys we have on the field right now are not doing what we need them to do. It's not personal, but we need to win this. And then you need to make the chop and change.
Yeah, a lot of permutations. And then I think the last point before we move over to the Bulls game is like I've watched Kobus Reinach play. What the weird thing is that we're talking about Faf on the URC podcast because Faf's apparently going to well, the rumor is he's signing for the Cheetahs, and that's generally thought of like an Indian summer, like he's going to go retire there because the Cheetahs aren't in the URC. They play EPCR, that type of thing. When I forgot that Faf is actually 3 years younger than Reinach, so shout out for Reinach to like by this time. And the thing is, I've watched him come through the Shark system, make his debut for the Sharks out of the youth system, and sort of play, and then became sort of an erratic, inconsistent player and go overseas and flourish. One weird thing though is that now he's got like he looks a lot different now. Now he's got used to have like a mohawk, but now he's got a big beard and a shaved head. So he's got upside down head. He looks like Obadiah Stane from the Iron Man movie. So I've seen the whole Kobus Reinach evolution. So we'll see how things pan out for him. But yeah, it's smart of the Stormers to have rested him leading up to this game, and sort of because they have like 4 really good scrum halves, all in different stages of their career, all starting from Imad Khan, who's like early part of his career, all the way to Dewald Tivanaga, who's player/coach. So yeah, there's that aspect to it as well. Well, we'll look forward to the Stormers using these lessons and hopefully winning their next 4 URC games, and maybe even securing top spot in the URC, because Glasgow will be distracted by still being in the EPCR tournament. We move over to the second game of the evening. Bulls unfortunately also fall short in windy Scotstoun in Scotland. We'll start with you, Jean. Unfortunate result, but very back and forth, similar to the Stormers game. 80 plus minutes of absolute must-watch rugby. Exciting, but not the result we wanted.
No, definitely not. And I think the Bulls, if I compare it to previous games where we played in Europe, where the wind was really howling, I think the previous one was actually in a gale force storm, and the kicking really was impacted by that. I think the Bulls really played the weather very well for almost 65 minutes. But at the end of the day, you've got to give credit to this Glasgow squad. They just hung in there, and they denied every opportunity they could. They denied the Bulls the chance to go over. Um, I'm a lot happier with the officiating in this match in general. Um, I do feel that if the Bulls had a bit better control of their temperament in the last couple of minutes, we would have seen a closer game. And by that, I'm referring to Marco van Staden, who got into some fisticuffs and got the Bulls marched back 10 meters. Now, 10 meters on a 100-meter rugby pitch doesn't sound like a lot, but what that 10 meters did was it gave the kicker just a lot more angle to work with in going for the corner. The difference between a 60 meter and a 50-meter kick, or a 50-meter and a 40-meter kick to touch, is very big for the kicker. He's got a lot. His angle can be a lot sharper. He doesn't have to go so shallow. And it was almost as if the weather had seen the shift in the match, and the wind sort of changed direction, and suddenly they were kicking with the wind and not against it. But I'm proud of the way the Bulls played, and I think it was a close match at the end of the day. I think it was decided by discipline at the end of the day, and the six penalties between the teams almost. I mean, those six penalties can speak to the difference in points between the two teams. So yeah, I'm not terribly happy, but in a similar position to Bryce, I'm not that upset. We had a good performance. We played really well, but you were playing the number one team in the URC, and a team that undoubtedly have their eyes set on at least a semi-final in the Champions Cup. They've got to have their eyes set on a semi-final. Glasgow are a brilliant team, and they're excellently coached. So yeah, sorry that we lost, and I really hate the indiscipline that bit us at the end there. But I think the boys really did well to capitalize on their strengths, to play well where we could play well. Yeah, it's like I said, it's just that last penalty really killed us.
Yeah, the Bulls sent their best possible team, like the Stormers before them, and unlike the Sharks, which we'll get to later. I mean, Stafford McDowell having been picked ahead of Hugh Jones, despite Hugh Jones not being injured, because of Hugh Jones' poor form, and maybe also the fact that Hugh Jones is leaving Glasgow to go play in France at the end of the season. Another aspect we need to talk about is the fact that South African players are obviously highly sought after across the world in terms of rugby, but South African coaches are not too far behind, with Johan van Graan doing yeoman-like work for Munster and now Bath, and now Glasgow coach Smith, Franco Smith, like sort of like a player before my time. I don't know him as a player that well. I knew him sort of being in the cheetah system in coaching and stuff like that. But yeah, having played in Italy, then coached Italy at test level, then one might have said, oh, it's like a step down, like coaching Glasgow, but done fantastic work and pretty much dead set to take over at Scotland after this World Cup cycle. Will he be around in Scotland for at least 4 years, maybe 8 years? I suspect he will do very well, considering how well he's done with Glasgow, with like indifferent. It's not like he's got the Leinster squad or the Shark squad or the Bull squad or that type of thing. He's got a good squad, but they had to also like invest and be smart and things like that. Yes, they did just miss out to David Kriel. David Kriel chose to rather David Kriel, who I understand had like a whole bevy of options in front of him of varying sort of quality and stuff like that. Choosing to rather join Lauren O'Gara at La Rochelle. But the fact that they've even like, because of the Franco Smith South Africa connection, they could like offer David Kriel an opportunity in Scotland that my understanding is he really considered. He didn't just dismiss. So there's that aspect as well. But yeah, it was the Stafford McDowell show. One aspect we need to talk about, Bryce, is, and this is true of South African teams in general, we saw this in the Stormers game, the restart after scoring, and this is a frustration for me for sometimes the Sharks as well, and every South African team if you back your team, sometimes not so much the Springboks. The Springboks don't make this mistake that much. That your team will score, they'll get the whole 7 points, or maybe just 5 points, and immediately after they start, they'll mix it up, and then give the opposition a penalty within their own half. Your thoughts, Bryce?
Hmm. I'm not sure like why that was, because I was watching this Bulls game. I was thinking
Mhm.
you now 21, 22, got like 5 minutes left. This is it, you kick while here, Glasgow can maybe knock on, I don't know. You kick out, you contest the line out, and then I don't know, they let the ball bounce. I don't know
Yeah,
how that even
they were
happened.
struggling with restarts throughout the game, yeah. And then some of
Yeah.
them they did okay. I think Pampir got the ball at one point in the late in the first half,
Mm,
and they just whacked it out. So there were some good restarts. But
mm,
yeah, that last restart for me also, the restarts are out the game when you should, but that last restart I was just going to Zach Berger, just get it out, because if you get a line out, you
mm,
can maybe just compete. But now,
mm,
because the Bulls defense wasn't that great throughout the season and not great in this game in stages, the they made Glasgow look good with Stafford McDowell and Josh Mackay sort of finding holes in the system and bursting through this. Sorry for disrupting you there.
Also, there's also the restarts that end up in a penalty to Glasgow, which I don't know if it's desperation or what, but if you do knock it on, then at least don't you still got like 20 meters left to defend. You don't need to win that ball back immediately. And I guess it's the same with the Storm as well. Once they lose that ball, they get so desperate to get the ball back that they end up conceding a penalty, and then it ends up being a 5 meter maul. And as we saw against Glasgow, Franco's made that maul into a super weapon. I don't know how they maul so well. I don't know if they got some inside knowledge from Dan or what's his David's from the bottom. But that maul is, I don't think the Bulls could stop that thing. But but I don't know. I don't know what goes through a player's head. Look, I'm not a professional player, so I don't know when you lose a restart, do you get panic that you need to win it back or what? I don't know what your thoughts are, because I don't know what causes a player to commit a penalty immediately after fumbling a ball.
Yeah, I think I think it is a bit you're correct there in the sense that you know there's a there's a level of um I don't want to say panic, but uncertainty starts creeping in. You fumble a restart, you're like, okay, well, the next restart will get it. You fumble that restart, and you're like, this is now getting. I mean, you almost don't. You're thinking to yourself, let's not score, because if we score, we're gonna get a restart or we're gonna fumble. And a restart's supposed to be where you get rewarded, right? You scored, you're getting possession of the ball in your own half, you get to set the terms of the next engagement, and you're sort of fumbling that. So I think it takes a knock in confidence for the team. And then just I think also in general, in terms of Glasgow's mall, what they do really well, and if you guys ever want to see this in action, take a look at the New Zealand malls, because they also do this really well. So what they just do is they set incredibly fast, right? And they bind incredibly fast. And what you'll notice is the guys coming in from the back, who's joining from the back, join low. So if you see a flanker, a good flanker, will join just below, almost where the where if this is the buttock right here, he'll slide his shoulder in and he'll be pushing, sort of he'll take some of the weight off the prop of his own legs. And I noticed that Glasgow, the guys joining from the back, they really joined one with a lot of punch, and they were punching the maul. And secondly, they joined really low. So what that does is it paints the picture for the ref that if the maul then collapses, it's the defending team that collapsed it, because they're pushing upwards, and the defending team is going to step back, and then the maul collapses, and the ref's going to go, well, you collapsed the maul because you couldn't defend it. And if the defending team is clued up, they're going to be like, well, let's backtrack and not give away a penalty try, but then you're backtracking and you're giving them momentum. So, for the attacking team, and again, you're 100% right, Bryce. Credit to to the coaching staff of Glasgow for sorting out the maul like that, because the maul, much like the scrum, is a case where it's not the heaviest, it's not the strongest, but it's the guys who can push all at the same time in unison, that's going to win. And Glasgow just had that timing every single time they were mauling it, and it was painful to watch, but at the same time, as a rugby fan, it was beautiful to watch.
One interesting aspect is that when we did the preview show on Friday night and we looked at the match 23s, I had a feeling that both the Stormers and the Bulls were going to play their starting hookers throughout the game because they had utility forwards at the hooker position on the bench, and that is what happened. Dion Fourie did come on as a flank as opposed to replacing Andre Hofente, and Grobler played the whole game, and Van Staden came on the flank. And like you said, Jean Van Staden didn't give us the energy we wanted in terms of just on the field. He was sort of getting distracted by sort of fisticuffs and handbags. So that's not necessarily good. I think that an aspect we have to acknowledge with the Bulls is that their restarts have been relatively solid this season, and this was away in like horrible conditions. So there's that aspect. Also, the Glasgow players were tactically kicking the ball in such a way that made the restart a bit more challenging. So we'll give the Bulls a degree of credit there. It didn't help that Curtly Arendse went off in the first half. At the end of the first half, didn't come out during the halftime break. Replaced by Stephen Gans, who is a high quality player that I rate, but not quite the impact that we might expect from like a decorated Springbok. So yeah, the Bulls, similar to the Stormers, now can shift focus to the URC. They get a week off now, and they got 4 games to like really maybe even. I mean, I'm always optimistic, so maybe even secure fourth place and get some sort of home last 8 fixture. All right, guys, the third game of the evening happened on Friday night and was my Sharks playing the ABCD mixed up team. Took them all the way to windy Galway. Galway, the conditions weren't as bad as when we played before. I find it quite annoying that when South African teams tour Europe en masse, there's always a storm of some sort, to the degree that the Cheetahs game had to be called off earlier in the season. So yeah, Sharks played a mixed team and we had a solid first half. Playing with the wind at our backs. A couple of players stood out for me, like Franco Smith's second oldest son, Jean Smith, who's leaving us for Benetton next season. He had a solid game. I mean, we are rating him, and I'm obviously quite sad that I was hoping him and Jordan Hendricks would compete with one another for the Sharks number 10. That would have been sort of a healthy competition. And then things unfortunately fell apart in the second half. We're playing into the wind. The Connacht were a very good team. Much better than we thought they would be this season. Now on a six game winning streak in all competitions. We'll see Connacht next in the URC in Cape Town playing the Stormers, playing Bryce's team. They came out and they were far better, like you said on the chat, Jean. Their line speed in terms of defense was good. They play that in such a way that they weren't conceding penalties for being offside, but they were still in the faces of the somewhat lethargic Sharks teams. Like they were trying, but in the second half, the energy sort of sapped out. When the Springbok front row was left, that also the replacements weren't that good. Mbanda was leaving us for the Bulls. He almost immediately got stripped of the ball when he came on in the second half. It's just not great. He's a very good player, very highly sought after player. Doesn't play that often for the Sharks, so that might be an aspect that hurts him. Yeah, Sharks are out of the EPCR tournament. We got into this tournament by playing reasonably well, winning 2 games in the Champions Cup group stage. And as we said earlier, we actually got more points than some teams who stayed in the Champions Cup. But because of the format and because of the group we were in, we dropped down from the Champions Cup to the Challenge Cup, which is basically the Europa League or the Europa Conference League, if you will. So it doesn't seem. It's just a bit annoying that, like, if we were going to play the C team, why didn't you just play the full C team? Maybe they were trying to give some players a bit of a run out, knowing that we'd probably lose the game and then get this week off. I mean, Eben Etzebeth did some good things in the first half, went off quite early in the second half. Wasn't maybe as active as we know he could be. And I mean, he's not played competitive rugby for some time now. And training only gets you so sharp. I mean, like, as soon as somebody wrote on the URC chat, Kalen, shout out to Kalen, that Eben Etzebeth wasn't very effective, he's still a line out. So thank you, Kalen, for that. I hope you do text more often. But yeah, look, there were some positive aspects to the game, like some younger players maybe got a run out, and maybe some players. I mean, Leroux Milan had a good game again. I will say that not having Andre Estes and in the opposition there being Bandiaki, that seemed like a recipe for for disaster. And yes, Bandiaki did basically create a try thanks to the fact that three Sharks players had to tackle him. But to Manus Potgieter's credit, a guy who came to us from the Bulls, played baby bok rugby at wing. Has been injured for the last 3 years, hasn't played much at all, struggled with knee and hamstring injuries. He actually did quite well at inside center and has played for us at inside center in Currie Cup and the under 23 sort of slash reserve league tournament as well. So look, conditions weren't ideal. Connacht didn't look fantastic necessarily. They didn't look like they're going to win the RC, but they look like a flipping good team. I mean, Kim Pendergrass, Sam Pendergrass's older brother, he played well. Um, Even van der Merwe played a solid game. Mampimpi somewhat went off in the 47th minute. Not the best of games from him. Janus Potgieter had a solid game. Kino Vavaseri played better in the first half, but then struggled in the second. But that you can say that with the whole team. Any other? I think Ethan Hooker came on and played a blinder. So it shows that like if you're that quality. Unfortunately, I'm a big fan of Vincent Tuka, but he didn't make much of an impact off the bench. Jean, I know you watched this game. Your thoughts on Connacht's performance and the Sharks?
Yeah, look, Connacht was obviously prepping. I think Connacht were expecting Andre Esterhuizen at 12, and I think we would have had an epic battle between Andre Esterhuizen and Bundy Aki. I would have loved to seen those two heavyweights go toe to toe, especially, whether Bundy's tackling the Giant or the Giant's tackling Bundy. You've got guaranteed hard hits there. Um, yeah, but Connacht's line speed just killed them, and that's despite this is some of the very limited game time I've seen of Sean Smith, but he is the if I was honestly if I was the Sharks coach, I would honestly be speaking to management about doing what we need to do to keep him. That is despite the pressure, the line speed, the very aggressive defense they were facing. That was the best I've seen them shift the ball in possibly this season. The ball was getting out wide. They were passing well, despite the weather conditions, despite the wind. We were actually seeing the ball go through the hands. We had the classic double line going. Um, I really feel like he was a 10 that got that back line, even if it's a second string or second, third string combo back line. He got them going, despite the insane rush defense that Connacht had. Um, so yeah, and then it's just that insane rush defense just killed the Sharks' momentum every single time. And at the end of the day, the difference in this match comes from the fact that Connacht could score tries and the Sharks couldn't. The Sharks led on penalties, which is great. Um, but winning a game on penalties is really hard. You need to score at some point. In knockout rugby, the team who gets a try is generally the team that's going to win. And that's where the difference came. The Sharks couldn't score at all because that defense was just neutering them. And the and Connacht could because they could overload the Sharks defense. And especially, like you said, 100% credit to Bundy Aki. Every time he came on a storming run, he took two defenders with him. And then you have to realize it's two defenders that he's eating, plus the Sharks want to slow down the ball, so it's another person going into the ruck. So effectively, only 12 people remain to cover the width of the field. And then you have to think about the forwards, the locks, the loosies, all those guys coming in. And then, yeah, I think the last thing for me that really hurt the Sharks was they didn't seem to have a fetcher. Lots of opportunities for turnovers. No turnovers taken. Connacht conceded 0 turnovers, whereas the Sharks conceded 8. And you as a coach will have to look at that and see that for the alarm bell it is, and say, listen, I can't have 3 great loose forwards, but no one is my fetcher. at least then communicate to someone and say, you're the fetcher for this game. I need you to, your number one job is to hunt for opportunities to get us the turnover. And there were lots of people on the field who could get turnovers. Oxenche could get turnovers, Vincent Koch could get turnovers, uh, Chichuka can get turnovers. There was definitely people there who could do it. I just don't think anyone was given the responsibility. It was, oh, if you can get a turnover, that's great. But you, at the end of the day, someone needs to be given that responsibility to say, you are the guy, you are number one when it comes to turnovers. And I just think that maybe didn't happen. But JP Peterson's a great coach, and he will definitely that will be something that I don't think we'll see going forward.
Yeah, that frustrates me a lot. I think this happened in the Connacht game in round 6 as well. We get isolated, and the Connacht technique in terms of turnovers is excellent. Jean Smith's passing ability and the backline moves, it reminded me of he's the best passing fly off that the Sharks have had since Innocent Radebe, who unfortunately career got cut short due to a knee injury. He did try to revive it at the Lions, but then that didn't quite work out. I think he's still playing. I think he's playing for the Crusaders Club Rugby in Durban. So shout out to Innocent Radebe. Because I mean, when he made his Currie Cup debut, I remember watching that on a Friday night with a friend, and I was actually making notes at the same time on a piece of paper. And I was like, wow, this guy's really good. Yes, he's not the biggest dude, so he might have like worked out long term like a sort of Sam Pendergrass sort of defensive liability. But in terms of attack, he was like excellent. Bryce, will go to you last for this game. Bryce, unfortunately, the Stormers lost to the Sharks twice this season in the RC. However, in 2 weeks' time, you're going to actually murder Connacht. So it's really rock, paper, scissors?
Oh, you're done. You just lagged out there, but
Yeah, you can go ahead.
oh, cool. Um, yeah, remember last season Connacht came over, and then I thought that was gonna be easy game last season, and it turned out to be I don't know, I don't know, was it that game? Yeah, we
Yeah,
at
it
the
was.
end, we just about won
Mm.
thanks to a forward pass or something.
Bryce, were
So
you at that game?
I think I think I was.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember that thinking we lost that game, and then they called the TMO. Yeah, that was a mixture of like the best of Sacha and then the best of like Connacht I've ever seen. So I wouldn't count them out there because I mean Stuart Lancaster's been easy. I think this is only his first season, and I think he's starting to put together something really much better than the previous season. So I think they're on a good trajectory, but I do think the Stormers. Look, I don't know the Stormers. Like, the Stormers struggled against Dragons, so anything can happen here. But I think they should have enough to beat them by 5 points.
Interesting enough, I was at that game. It was the
Mm,
first Stormers game I'd watched in a long time.
mm,
I think, in fact, I think it's the first competitive Stormers game I'd ever watched at Cape Town Stadium. I had watched the
mm,
preseason game with Stormers versus Boland and VP versus Boland second team. Although we showed up late for that game because of
mm,
I'm usually very punctual, but the people I went with were not. So yeah, what stood out for me in that Connacht game is at one point the Afrikaans Tanny in front of me said in Afrikaans, "Can someone just effing tackle that redhead?" But in
yeah.
Afrikaans, she was just like, I don't know who
Mm,
it is, but
yeah.
whatever ginger they have on the wing, can someone just tackle him?
Mm,
So yeah. Um Now the South African teams will have all of them will have a break, and the Sharks will be on a two match tour of Europe, and the Stormers and the Bulls will be hosting teams. So we'll get to that a bit later. The last game of the evening that we'll review is the Women's Super League One game, where Jean's the final, where Loftus Versfeld, the 11 o'clock kickoff, where Jean's
mm,
Bulls Daisies defeated Boland Dames by a significant scoreline, but not as big a scoreline as early in the season. Because early in the
mm,
season in the round robin, these two teams did face off at the same venue, and it was a far more significant scoreline. So Boland Dames I wouldn't say put up a good fight. I'd say we're actually incredibly competitive, and they're like the talk of the tournament, because everybody just thought this is a procession towards a Bulls VP final. Jean, your thoughts on a fourth consecutive women's title?
Yeah, I'm look, as much as I'm happy for the Bulls Daisies, and they're obviously getting the benefit of the investment in them. And I mean, this goes to show what women's rugby in SA could be, given the right investment, professionalization, opportunities. Um, you have to give credit to Boland. They've had an outstanding run of games to get to the final, and while they may have lost to the Daisies earlier in the season, that doesn't take anything away from their last couple of games, which were absolutely fantastic. Um, but yeah, I think the Daisies really kept their composure well, despite the injuries. We had two pretty early injuries. Losing Libby certainly you'd think would have a big impact. Um, but yeah, we just stayed resolute on defense. We committed ourselves to keeping their score low, and then we were sharp on attack, and we took the opportunities that were on the table. Shout out also to Boland Dames Asezehele, who really played well. And we've seen her when she plays for the Springboks as well. She's a devastating ball carrier, and she really did try and lead her team from the front, carry hard, carry strong. Um, I think just the Daisies had made up their mind on this particular occasion that we're going to stop almost everything, and we're gonna punish you for all your mistakes. So yeah, no, very glad for the fourth title, but I do hope that we can see some more women's teams embrace professionalism, and becoming full-time rugby players. And I would actually love if the Daisies could get an exhibition match or two against some of the Women's Premier League teams from the UK. I think that would be fantastic. We've got a lot of South African women playing there. I think it would really be cool to have a one-off or a two-off series against some of those teams, just to boost women's rugby, which I think has been doing fantastic over the last couple of years.
Player that stood out from the Bulls off the bench this season, something like the breakout player of the tournament, would be Lebogang Ralebuna. Extremely powerful. They almost used her sparingly, considering how devastating she is, in terms of not just size, because we've got a lot of big women, including the Sharks game that I watched against Western Province here in Cape Town. They had some large front row forwards to make an impact off the bench. But in particular, this young lady, Lebogang Ralebuna, her explosiveness was something that stood out in this tournament. So shout out to her. And I think we saw some young ladies that we've seen in the Springbok setup, but we've also seen some that show incredible potential. Some that have played for the Sevens team and shown some potential there as well, and then brought that over to 15s, and a couple of players that could well supplement the players we've already seen at the World Cup going forward. Gentlemen, we've run out of time. We've got 3 minutes left before the next podcast needs to start. From myself, Jean, and Bryce, until next week, in Rassie, we trust.
I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.